Hell no. Hell to the no. To the no, no. Much more spare food. That really should have been breakfast, you know. Long out there. Okay. Still haven't made a better build. This character's gonna get murked, and truly murked. So looks like we're live. It looks like we're live. We're not live everywhere though. We need to go purple app. We need to get on the airwaves. Set a timer. It's already 6 o'clock. Wow, 97 hours. Can you imagine doing a stream for that long? Oh my gosh. I actually would be able to do that though. I'd be able to do that. In the past, I think I've done like 12-hour streams before, so I think I could do 97, maybe. There would be some sleeping though, for sure. Alright. Let's get sound check on the other side of the map. We haven't got no sound yet. I cannot see. I cannot hear. I have no mouth. I must LARP. Come on. Let me see. What? Oh, look, I have no nose. Oh, the way TikTok works is so weird. Okay, anyways. Alright. No expectations. We're just gonna play and maybe speak to some people. That all depends. My stream is laggy. Is it laggy for you guys? It looks like it's working to me. Perhaps it's just my phone. Can you guys hear me? Can you see me? I need to know. Alright, what was we doing the last time I played this game? I think we was trying to get into the castle from the opposite direction. Whoa, that's kind of loud. Oh, what's up, Gino? How we doing? Is it Gino? Jano? You changed your username? Alright, let me just find out how we're doing on... What is that noise? Is it? Congratulations. What made you quit smoking? Can we get a sound check real quick? Not too bad, my friend. So, how's the... How long was you smoking before? And what brought you to quit? Okay, we see... Oh, wait. Let's not jump the gun. We got sound? Yeah. Got echo, though. But we do have sound, which is good enough for me. Okay. Right. Can't use a horse here. I haven't even played this in weeks. I think, actually, I've not played this since the last time I was on stream. Alright, Vaughn, that's an interesting point, but why do you think that, though? Are you just making a comparative type of argument, or are you saying they're just as, or they're the same? It's really a comparative type of argument. So why do you think that is the question I want to know. Got a request. Oh, so how long were you smoking for, Jay? Now, congratulations, by the way. Congratulations. I'm glad glad you're doing better, man. Excuse me. Get some water, quickly. Hello.
Yo, you right, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, bro.
So, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about an unpopular opinion? Do you want to talk about banning smoking? Talk about God being an invention?
Talk about a smoking ban.
Cool. Couple questions I'm gonna ask you before we begin, if that's all right with you. Still there?
Yeah.
First question is, what name do you want to be called?
You call me Marco, mate.
Marco.
Yeah.
All right, nice to meet you, Marco. So, first questions: have you ever worked in or around the tobacco or cannabis industries?
Nope.
Do you use either of those substances?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Do you mind sharing what age you started using them?
I was about 12.
Oh man, that's pretty young, bro. Last question: have you ever tried to quit them before, or do you plan to quit them?
Nah, I don't plan, or I've never tried, no.
Never tried to quit them before. Cool. All right, the floor is yours,
No.
man. Tell us why smoking should or shouldn't be banned.
Yeah, I don't agree in personal bodily autonomy.
Say,
Uh, I
sorry.
think adults have the right to make their own choices, and it should stay that way.
I mean, I understand that, but are you saying that's the biggest reason why it shouldn't be?
Personally, yeah. And government overreach, those two things, yeah.
All right, so what are your reasons to think that it would be government overreach?
Well, it's a dangerous precedent, really. It's about state control. You know what I mean? The stuff grows in the sun, you know? I think maybe, if it's about, banning the sale in shops and whatnot. I mean, would you be for, stopping it at all, like you can't even grow it yourself?
Well, I don't look. I'm in agreement that it's just a plant, right? Just like tobacco is just a plant. I'm assuming you're talking about not tobacco, right? But yeah,
No, I'm talking about tobacco.
oh, you're talking about tobacco. Okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes this a much cleaner conversation, and I'd prefer to talk about tobacco, to be fair. But some people, talk about other things. But yeah, so I agree. It's just a plant, right? It grows naturally, but you have to be careful. I forget what it's called. It's called like the natural fallacy or something like that. It simply assumes that because something is natural, it's good, which is a fallacious way of thinking. But that being said, no, humans shouldn't outright just delete the plant species from existence because we can't control ourselves. It's an us problem. Okay, so it's not the plant's problem for existing. It's the human's problem for the various ways we use it. So on that front, no, I wouldn't want to destroy the plant anywhere it exists. I think that'd be ridiculous. But in terms of people cultivating it to consume it and to distribute it, yes, I would like to heavily regulate specifically the tobacco industry and ban outright because there's no good reason. Put it this way, the cons outweigh the pros.
Sure, I mean, you could stop a lot of deaths.
Sure, yeah,
That's the big
8 million a
reason.
year, about 8 million a
You
year.
know, it's a lot of, a lot of, a lot of bad stuff. You know what I mean? But like I say, it is one of the most addictive substance. Um, People have been doing it for a very long time. There's a lot of elderly people that still do it.
Mm.
Um, and I think, I mean, if you could find ways to cut down from children starting it and whatnot, that would be good. But really, like I say, it's about bodily autonomy
Yes.
and, you know,
So the thing is, right?
government overreach.
It
You know what
wouldn't,
I mean?
from my point of view, both of those things are valid concerns. Don't get me wrong; they're valid concerns. But I think the problem is you're making an argument from fear, really, right? Which is another type of fallacious way of thinking. Because like, oh, if they do this, then what will they do next? That's kind of the view of that libertarian view. But in terms of a bodily autonomy thing, that's a philosophical stance. That's not something you could protect legally. There's no law that says you can do what you want with your body. You realize that, right?
Sure,
So
sure. Well, to a degree,
no,
to a
there
degree,
just
you
isn't
can
no.
do what you want.
No, just
If it's
there's no
illegal,
protect. It's not
if it's
protected by
illegal, you
law.
can't.
No, see the thing is,
If
it's
it's
not.
illegal, you can't.
No, it's not just if you do a crime. There just literally isn't a law that says you can do what you want with your body. Right? I'm not saying that that means you belong to the state as like a vassal or like a, it's like an object, but there's just not a
Well, it kind of
law
does sound
or a
like
codified
that's
right.
kind of is what it sounds like, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
That's
like
kind of exactly what it sounds
in
like.
our society, yes, but you also got to understand there's what you're saying about bodily autonomy speaks to like natural rights, which is a philosophical view. It's not a legal view, right? It helps inform legal views because a lot of our laws are built around these philosophical ideas anyway. But all I'm trying to say to you is, it's okay for you to believe that you should have bodily autonomy, but it kind of spills into a utilitarian thing, right? How much individual freedoms can you have before you start affecting people around you and the society at large? That's kind of where it starts to spill into actual law, you know? Do you get what I'm
Of course,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of
Of
tobacco
course.
consumption, from the production to the consumption and the sale of it, that affects millions, thousands of people on the way to you, and millions of people a year, right? I think smoking in general, this includes other substances, accounts for 10% of all mortalities in the world every year. Right, so just one preventable thing. Then, not to mention all the people who are living with like incurable diseases and ailments because of it. So last I checked, it was like around seven-ish million people die from smoking directly every year, but they also kill 1.6-ish million people every year from secondhand smoke. So now, when you're talking about bodily autonomy, you've moved beyond you as the person, and you're starting to talk about community, country, and everyone around you. So that's kind of why it's a bad argument from that point of view.
Do you want to know a crazy fact?
Sure.
All right. Non-smokers die every day.
Yeah, that is true.
I know it's crazy, isn't it, mate? It's
No, that's very
crazy.
true. Yes,
I think I'll leave it on that statement right there.
but that didn't
I'll
really.
leave it on that statement right there.
Okay, right. So I'll ask you one question before you leave, if you don't mind. Do you have any plans of quitting in the future? No, he actually left. How unfortunate. Like, I guess he thought you did something. I suppose. That was a cope. Yeah, that was absolutely a cope. Hello,
Yo,
what's up, bro?
what's up, man?
Can I get a name you want to be called?
Jeff.
Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Nice to meet you, man.
So, do you wanna? Have you got like a hot take? I really do want to hear hot takes today. Like, and I'll just like come up with a debate or an argument on the fly. Or do you want to talk about smoking being banned, or that God isn't an invention?
You say you do want a hot take?
Yeah, sure. I'd prefer to hear like something that's just like out there, not crazy. You know what I mean? I'm not asking for someone to come up here and tell me something crazy, but just something I wasn't expecting.
I didn't think of anything. Where are you from? Are you in America or where are you from?
I'm in the UK, bro.
Mm. Hot take: UK food is ass.
All right, all right. So, what do you define as UK food then?
No, I'm just talking shit. I can't actually fight that one. I do
No,
genuinely think UK food is trash, but
well, some
that's
people will agree with you, but it depends what you define UK food as, though.
like fucking. I've seen pictures of like French fries with like baked beans on them and
But you
shit,
said
bro.
French, they're French, right? So they're not UK food.
All right, man.
Joking. What,
Yeah.
what did you actually want to talk about? I'm assuming you want to talk about
I
smoking,
I
right?
was getting up here to talk about the smoking bullshit, but yeah,
Nah,
I mean,
let's
I can't.
let's do that. Then. Let's do that. All right.
All right, but
All right. So a couple questions before we talk about smoking should be banned. All right.
all right.
First question is: have you ever worked in or around the tobacco or cannabis industry?
Nah.
Have you ever used either of those substances? Do
Yeah.
you mind sharing what age you started using them?
Mm, probably like 16.
Have you ever tried to give up any of those?
Yeah.
Cool. The floor is yours now.
Um, I think that's honestly a great starting point. The fact that I can go back and forth from doing it to not doing it to like, it's never been like like I gotta do this all day. Like even when I vape, I don't vape anymore. But even when I did vape, I mean, I never got really into that. That was not really my thing. But smoking weed, yeah, like I don't think it's that bad. Like, I think that you should have the right to be able to do, when you say banned, that's more of like, that's just too controlling. Like, that's too, I feel like you should have the choice to do what you want, you know?
No, I don't think anyone really thinks that you should do what you want, all right? Because again, not to myself commit a slippery slope fallacy, but I'll put it like this, right? In order to have freedom, freedom has to have some limitations, right? So a good example of this would be in order to have something called freedom, right? You can't sell yourself into slavery. Why can't you sell yourself into slavery with your freedom? Because that would inhibit or prohibit future freedoms. So it would prevent you from having freedom in the future. Therefore, freedom itself must have some limitations, right? So if you're talking about you think people should just be able to do what they want. I know we just throw that around like a flippant statement. So yeah, I think people should do what they want. But the reality is, no, actually, you don't want people to do what they want, because what you find is reasonable and moral isn't necessarily what someone else finds reasonable and moral. Right? Another example would be you shouldn't be able to legally mutilate yourself in front of children and people, or ask a doctor to amputate a perfectly healthy limb. Or, for instance, give consent to be cannibalized. Right? Those are
Okay.
things that you have to put parameters around, so that would inhibit that ultimate personal freedom. And they're just some examples, right? But the list goes on.
No, okay, so I can run with that. All right. So I say to what you just said, I think that I think that you should have the ability to decide those things, and I also think it's our job to step in and punish you for it if you do try and do one of these bad things. So, all those bad things you say, those all deserve punishment.
But
The punishment for smoking should not there should smoking is not something that's like really affecting everybody else besides you. I'm just killing
oh no,
myself.
no, that's not
Well,
true. That's
I
not
don't want to
true.
say that, but I'm harming myself
That's not true,
with
right?
the
Smoking kills people around you and it harms your wider society. But that side, right? What you're missing is you called the examples I just gave you bad examples that should be punished, but you haven't thought about why they're bad examples that should be
no,
punished,
I didn't
right?
say they're oh you're no, I'm saying the
Yeah,
actions are bad,
yeah,
not bad
but
examples.
that's what I'm saying. You're not thinking about why. At which point did we have to determine self mutilation is bad, or consenting to be cannibalized is bad, or asking so there's this psychological it's like a mental illness, right? It's not I forgive my language, right? But it's a mental type of disorder. It's not even better, where people feel like they should be an amputee, right? So in their mind, the perfect them is a person without a specific limb, and they walk around and they don't see themselves like they don't see themselves as being a whole person until they lose that limb. They can ask for that perfectly healthy limb to be removed. There's even like scary places on the internet where they go and they get people to manufacture accidents so they can lose that limb. But that whole thing that I just described, from the person that just wants to lose the limb to make them feel whole, they don't think what they're doing is bad, right? So there has to be a system where we establish what is the good and what is the bad, right? For you to be able to say that, self amputation is bad in the first place. In the same way, for me to be able to
Well,
say that smoking is bad in the first place.
I think that the realities of for something to become reality, I think a majority group of people have to consider that real. So if 10 people say that that's bad and one person says it's good, then for the most part, it's gonna be bad.
That's
Is
not
it
that's,
subjective?
that's not
Yeah,
true either.
it can be subjective, but that's for the majority sense. Like if you make a law, like there's a bunch of us who say, like you're the minority in the smoking. Like,
Oh,
well, actually,
that's
I
not
don't
true.
know. I
No,
don't know.
as far as
Actually, I
I'm
don't know
aware, no
about
one
that.
was born smoking like with a cigarette in their hand, like as they came out of the womb, or a
No, I'm saying
C-section.
with your opinion, like that, it should be completely banned.
No,
Like I
I
think
don't.
that's a
No, I don't think that I'm a minority at all, right? I think it's only 1.3 billion people in the world that are smokers, right? 80% of them start smoking before the age of 20. Okay, so I'm not in the minority. If anything, I'm in the majority now. But I did smoke in the past, so just so you know, right?
And then when you smoked in the past, do you think that you should be punished for it?
Well, I think it was a type of self punishment in itself, right? Because you got to
Right.
think, yeah, but this isn't a good thing, right? If I was shown the way and explained to as a young child, I wouldn't have put myself in that kind of self-harm place, right? But the way the tobacco industry is designed, it is actually designed to target children, right? Systemically, like from a sales and marketing point of view, and socially from like a brand. It's like the idealization of what coolness is. Those things are designed to target kids. So like the tobacco company's view is they don't want a 70-year-old customer base. They want kids all the way until they're 70, if they make it to 70 because of the cigarettes. Okay, so
I
yeah,
mean, yeah, that's why they made
you
vapes.
actually, it's self-harm in all reality. So as a child, you don't have the wherewithal to know that this, right? For instance, one of the biggest reasons why smoking weed should be banned is because what it does to the prefrontal cortex, which is part of how you make long-term decision making and impulse control. Okay, so a child doesn't have command of that very very well yet. So those are the things that lead a child to smoking and doing self-harm in the first place, because they don't have the skills or the actual biological tools to not do it unless guided, you know.
So you think that when you say ban, do you think that should be like restricted, or do you think it should just be like permanently erased from, like they should just put in a case and never be seen again? You
But
know,
well, the latter is completely impossible, right? You can't delete something off the face of the planet. And
I'm just asking though,
yeah,
like if you could choose, like if you could actually choose,
I mean, if I
would you
could look, bro,
completely permanently erase it if you
look,
could?
if I had that power, I'd either be Thanos or be God, right? But you know, and I could find a better balance if I had that kind of power. I could make it so people can do what they want and not harm themselves and harm others. Like if a God actually existed, they could do that, right? But right, if you're asking in real terms, like in the real world, right, I think a large part of banning it is the regulation. So both of those things are hand in hand. They're not separate ideas. They're the same thing essentially.
But would you? I'm asking though. When you say so, what are you gonna do? What would you do? Would you restrict it, or
What
would
if
you?
I was Thanos or just in general?
No, just you're saying when you say banned, what does banned mean to you? What is banned?
To make something publicly prohibited, in simple terms, right? You don't do this in public or in society at large. It doesn't necessarily have to be illegal.
So you would so you would outlaw it, or
All right, so like I can explain it like this, right? So in terms of what I'm talking about with smoking ban, it's like a multi-pronged approach. The first thing would be it would actually to keep it illegal, but it'd be to decriminalize it, meaning if people are caught with it and consuming it, instead of sending them to jail, giving them a criminal record, like putting them through the system, all right, they just receive a fine or mandatory education. So you can still have your legal parameters to work with for the consumer, and you can still have legal parameters to work with for the production. So in terms of the legal parameters for the production of it, you go to regulation. It's really like low level economics talk, right? But really the simplified version of it would be to make sure tobacco companies reduce the potency quality of nicotine by 90% or 99% if possible. What this does is it allows for the people to keep their philosophical view of personal liberties and still smoke, but make it easier for them to get off of it by making it not so addictive. Okay, so in order to regulate it, in order to ban it, you must regulate there. You can't overnight black and white anything, right? Our world just doesn't work like that. In fact, if the way the human mind works, if I tell you don't do something or you can't do something, it will more likely make you want to do that exact thing. So what you
no?
have to do,
That's a
you have to socially engineer it out so it's not a thought in your mind that this is something that is not, it's not a normative, it's not normal to do.
no. That's a more sensible resolution. Honestly, I can get with that. Now the part that I'm not rocking with is the finding and stuff, like making it. But I think that is a if you can find a middle ground in between that, I don't think that's bad. Like and like I said, but I'm not a big cigarette smoker.
Mhm.
Um, I just don't think that it should just be, you shouldn't be fined or stuff. But yeah, reducing the tobacco down 90% so you can just like weed it out and all that shit. I
Yeah,
think because I think since our generation, or I don't know how old you are, but the young, well, I'm not even the younger, but the new Gen Z or whatever the fuck, I think they're like sober or something. They're more sober than they've ever been or some shit like that.
yeah,
There's like a
that's
stat.
true. I've heard about. I think that more speaks to alcohol though, not necessarily other substances, but
Uh,
that's more about alcohol. It's for last time I looked at it, so it could be smoking as well. I don't know.
Maybe I think it is just alcohol. That's what they be saying.
Yeah,
But I don't think that's actually a bad solution.
there's more
But
to it
yeah, I
though.
just don't want to remove the free will to do that. You know,
But who said you had free will in the first place?
I mean, yourself.
Nah, like right. So for instance, let's put the smoking topic like in just one drawer, like in a mental palace, right? Let's imagine we got a chest of drawer of ideas that we're talking about. Let's put the smoking topic in the top left drawer, right? Now let's go to the right drawer, right? Like, yeah, directly parallel, right? If that's the right way, right? In the right drawer, we've got the idea of free will, right? Now, what is the argument that there is such a thing called free will, and what does free will actually look like? What does it mean?
Free will means that I have the right to choose my decisions, or I can choose my decisions, whatever that may be.
So why do you think that's what free will is?
Because that's what it is. I don't know. That's
Well,
what free will is.
this is the interesting thing, right? Not a lot of people have actually looked into what free will is. Okay, so if I was to give you a like an Oxford Dictionary definition, it would be the ability to act unrestrained. What was it? Unrestrained by necessity, unconstrained by necessity or fate, or at one's own discretion. Right, so that's not I can choose. Like no. Like it's free will is much deeper than that. It's much more rich of an idea than just choosing things. So right. I'll put it to you like this, right? To act unconstrained by necessity would be like, for instance, if I pick up this Vaseline, right, and I let go of it, I release it. By necessity, it must obey the laws of gravity. Okay, just like me and you must obey the laws of gravity and what we believe time to be, obey the laws of time, right? Space, time, and matter. So by necessity, we're constrained to those things, right? Let's just say space, time, and matter. By necessity, in order for Set to exist and Jeff to exist, we are constrained by that necessity of space, time, and matter. In order to express free will, we would need to be able to operate outside of space, time, and matter physically, which, as far as I know, is impossible, right? But let's
Oh my
put
goodness.
it, as far as
Nah,
I know,
bro.
is impossible, right? But let's put the
Nah,
actual
bro.
science part. Let's put the science part to one side. Let's think about the more philosophical part, fate, right? So in a religious context, fate would be like the final point of something, right? The final destination of something. In a sentence, it was his fate to go to heaven and not to hell. Okay, so like the final outcome. Okay, if you, like me, are part of a causal chain, meaning something happened before I was born and things happen while I'm born, I am never the decider of what the fate is because I wasn't the decider of what the first like stone that rolled was. Okay, so the fate where one arrives at the last point is not my choice either. So that means on a scientific level, I can't operate outside of space, time, and matter. And on a philosophical or religious level, right, I can't operate outside of fate either. I'm bound.
No, that's cope.
It's
Cause,
cope.
cause
It
you can.
sounds like cope, but
No, it is cope. Cause you
so
can say that exact. Cause you can, bro. Cause that is such that's literally the same excuse you can say for like black people across the world. You can say
what do you
that.
mean?
You can say that it's not. You can say that it's free will. That you could use that same concept to make the valid excuse that I'm black, so I can't make it in society. Like, and
I
I'm a
mean,
black guy, so
no,
I'm I'm
I'm not
I'm
saying you should ever like resort to that kind of thinking because I don't find that to be productive to think like that. But I understand what you're trying
You
to
gotta
say.
have free will though. The
No,
last
no,
person on the tree isn't. You aren't bound to something behind you. The
you
free
are,
will, like,
you are.
like
This is like
because
this goes very deep, brother. Like it goes
I can explain
into
with
the way
with
that you're
the
able to think. That's how far this goes. Like what you're able to think, what you're not able to think. Like you
like
are
free will.
epistemically bound. you got, it's very deep.
No, you're not though. Because
Okay.
even if you're like gravity, like you saying gravity, me standing here on the earth, feet planted is not free will. But if I decide to raise my foot and kick somebody in their face, that's the free will.
No,
Because
it's not.
I'm fighting against the gravity. Like I'm
No.
choosing to
Uh,
reject
yeah,
the laws of physics or use it or whatever. I'm using
I
laws of physics to
understand.
my benefit.
I
Like I'm
understand.
doing that.
No. You right. So the laws of physics, right, as like some abstract governing principles, they are deciding what you're going to do before you think you can do it. Okay, but like the parameters of the game are already set, right? So you lifting up your foot, like on a biological level, your foot actually lifts up before your brain knows it. Like your subconscious mind is running all of those systems. Like your conscious mind is like it's like your lawyer saying, "Yeah, I have good reasons to do the thing that like Jeff has good reasons to do the things that Jeff does." But the lawyer's not the one making the decisions. The lawyer's just justifying the decisions after the fact. That's what your conscious mind
Just because
is.
it's some rules doesn't mean that it's not free will.
That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It isn't
I
free
know, I
will.
see what you're trying to say, but I don't agree. I think
No,
just because
right.
there's some
So
rules,
there's
that
a
don't make
distinction,
shit.
right? So remember what I said, right? Like, let's try like visualize this, right? Free will would be like so imagine a circle, right? Just like an empty circle, a three-dimensional circle, if you will, right? Free will is the
Yeah,
whole thing, right?
yeah.
Choice is a dot inside of the whole circle. So let's imagine the whole circle is the universe. Choice is a sun in the
Hmm.
whole space of the universe. So choice as a sun doesn't contain the same attributes as the whole universe, but the whole universe has the attribute of choice in it.
Bro, then what you're
Okay?
saying is a fucking anime character that can jump through
No,
moons.
no, no. I'll try to give it in a visual way so it's easier to understand. In
No, yeah,
simpler
I
terms,
know.
right?
I
Choice
know.
choice isn't the same thing as free will, right? Because free will being the whole universe means you would have command over space, time, and matter. Means you wouldn't be bound by fate, right? But choice, you
Exactly.
can make a bunch of choices within space, time, and matter. You can make a bunch of choices all the way to your fate, right? But it doesn't mean you control the whole scheme, which is the free will.
No.
Bro, I know it's
But
hard. Like that now, it sounds like you're coping, but
no,
it's deep.
I'm listening, but I don't, like I said, I think at the end of the day, just because what you're describing is just that's just saying that nobody ever in life has ever had free will ever.
Yeah,
And you don't
it's
believe in
hard.
God,
It's
or you
hard to deal
said
with.
humans invented God. It's like God,
No,
they
but
didn't even know
hey,
God to have a
but
free
this,
will.
but wait, that's the kicker, right? If you bring God into this, it makes it even worse, right? So if there is a God, right, and you're to
Right.
decide and you're to say that the God is all powerful, right? It sees all, it knows all, it can do anything it wills or doesn't will, right? Then that makes free will even less possible as a mere mortal. You realize
Yeah,
that?
yeah. And to your definition, yes.
No, to anyone's
In
definition,
your
brother.
brain, yes.
No, no, no. This is what I'm saying. Like a lot. Don't get me wrong, right? I know what
Because
I'm talking
you think
about.
free will is like, oh, I'm stuck to time. Like I don't give like I'm not
No,
thinking
it's
about all that
important.
shit
No,
when I'm
it's very
living.
exactly. You're not thinking about it because it's running in the background. So, like, for imagine, right? Jeff's just living his everyday life since he was a baby till today. But at some
Yeah.
point in Jeff's life, right, he manages to press pause on the life that is Jeff. And he realizes, oh, look, I can go to the menu of the console where Jeff is. Like, I'm looking at Jeff outside of Jeff, right? Now, if you could, as ridiculous as that is, if you could actually pause the life of Jeff and look outside of it, you would see, oh, actually, all this time I thought I was running around as Jeff, right? I was just in this map. And now I can see outside of the map. What
Right.
that example is a good example of what free will is, but it's also a good example of what basically
That is not
epistemology. No,
free
listen,
will.
listen,
That's what
listen,
that's what I
listen. I haven't
knew
finished
that
yet. I
you were
haven't
thinking
finished.
of.
I
Okay,
haven't
okay,
finished
okay.
yet, right? You being able to put a pause on the life that is Jeff and stepping outside of it, meaning your everyday living, all right,
Yeah.
creates the space for you to garner the language and the concepts to know what Jeff's normal life actually is. But if Jeff's normal life never pauses, Jeff will never be able to realize where he actually is, what he actually is. So Jeff is just this, he thinks so anyway, this autonomous lemming just going from day to day thinking he's making choices. But if Jeff never actually pauses to figure out what is actually going on around him, yes, Jeff doesn't know the difference between free will and choice. Right, but even if Jeff does pause the game, figure all this stuff out, Jeff's still got to play the game, right? So you're better off playing the game with the info than not playing the game with the info. Okay?
Yeah. Yes.
So
I'm hearing you.
So if you turn a blind eye to what I'm saying, right, it keeps you ignorant, not knowing. Again, I'm trying to explain it in a simpler way. When I say epistemically, right, it's about knowing, right, what you can know, right. Ontology is about being, right. These are just like Philbro language, but epistemically, right, what you can know is bound by your sensory experience, but how you're able to explain what you can know is bound by language. Okay. Systemically, people devise language from certain, like, there's a whole view called biopolitics. There's a lot of shit to know, right? If you pause the game, okay? People devise language to be able to paint their world or construct their world on top of reality.
That's a version of free will. That's a good example.
Kind of, but it's more descriptive than prescriptive. So when people devise their language, they can't command the world to be the way that they want it to be, but they can build the world to appear the way they want it to be. But if someone constructs the language and the systems in which Jeff lives, and Jeff never partakes in that, Jeff is epistemically bound to the creator of that style of living, of that style of thinking, of that style of speaking. So the choices Jeff can make while playing that role are constrained epistemically by what's been created for him already.
That's not true.
It is true.
You can leave You can leave the society. You can leave the city. You can make a new language. You can make a new law.
You think, right? No, exactly. You think, but it's very difficult to do anything original on this planet. It's very difficult. Okay, not saying it's impossible. Not saying it's impossible.
Hard doesn't mean that it's not like.
No, but but exactly, the fact that you're able to configure the words "I don't give a fuck" speaks to that epistemic conception that's built for you. The fact that you speak English, the fact that your name has a certain amount of syllables in it, that's an epistemic framework someone has invented for you to exist in.
Created by humans who had the free will to create that and use that to
not
their benefit.
necessarily.
Who then trickles down the further tree where everyone chose to use this same language.
Not necessarily.
Everyone uses this.
Fam, this is what I'm saying. This is why. All right. So for the smoking topic, like it's, oh yeah, I have the free will to smoke. Nah. Right. For this topic, right, the God topic, right. Nah. Right. Do you know why? Right. Because no matter how you frame it, the guy that would pick up a cigarette and start smoking it, he is societally conditioned by that same epistemic construct that I just explained. The guy who thinks I'm here because God wants me to be here is societally conditioned by that same epistemic framework for religion, okay? So both of the two guys, the smoker and the religious guy or the philosopher, right? They are both having their world constructed for them. So the choices they can make have already been made for them. They're not devising the new choices. They're just picking from a hand. Like I put a hand with like Skittles in this hand and a hand with Smarties in this hand. You didn't go to the shop, you didn't go to the factory and make the Skittles or the Smarties. You're just picking what I'm presenting.
I see what you're saying, but if that, like, you can't say that because if that's the case, no one ever in life has free will. So then,
yes, it's true.
So so I'm not gonna think like that. So then we have to think what is free will and who has the most freest will. Well, I think whoever can make the most choices has the most free will.
Not necessarily.
I think whoever can make the most choices. So
not necessarily. That's what I'm saying. There's another layer.
You need to have the money to make choices. You need to have.
See,
yes, money is created by someone else.
There you go.
Money is created by I understand.
There you go. Right. That's the epistemic system devised for you already.
Just because you have rules on the game and you're playing the game by the rules doesn't mean when I play the game, I don't like Elden Ring. Like you don't get instructions to play to the game. It's not like, oh, go to this place, go to that place. But you have the free will to fight the first.
Should this character? But should this character think it can be me in the real world? Should it think that?
What should the? I don't fucking know.
I'm the one who's allowing that character to exist in this particular style of fashion. It doesn't exist independent of me. So you saying, oh, the person who has the most choices and money requires money for choices, you're like the guy in the game. You don't realize the game is like there's the real world outside of the game. You can't beat the game from inside of the game.
Well, I don't think that there's like an outside. I would rather think there's a God than an outside matrix, to be honest.
I'm not saying there is an outside matrix either. I'm just saying, right? Like, forget the woo-woo. Like, put all the woo-woo aside. If you think about a definition of free will, the ability to act unconstrained by necessity or fate or at one's own discretion, that isn't the same thing as being able to make choices, right? Again, the visual exercise I gave you, free will be the circle, like everything is in the circle. Choice would just be a star inside of that universe, right? But the star itself isn't the universe. So just like my character in this game, right? He isn't running the circle that is the software, the hardware, the PlayStation, etc. He's just looking at the star and saying, look, the star flares in this way and in that way, and I can choose to wear this or wear that. But he hasn't got the whole circle. It's just a piece
Man,
of it.
you funny as hell, bro. You are a funny guy, bro.
I mean, it's important to know these things. I'm serious, bro. Like
Yo.
it would not only make your life easier, it would also like help you have like a, I don't know, like empathy for your fellow man, right? Because there's an old saying like never attribute to malice what can easily be attributed to incompetence or stupidity, right? So if you know that, oh, like all of these systemic things, like from language to the way you can think, the things you can do and can't do, are constructing this reality we live in. So when I look at John, I'd be like, John, you're a dickhead, man. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? I can actually take a step back and be like, actually, John doesn't know what he's doing. In the same way, I didn't know what I was doing, right? So it
So yeah,
makes life
I can
better.
I see that's a fair point. I do live life like that, honestly, because when I talk to people, I'm like, oh, I look at their situation, I'm like, yeah, honestly, they probably had a rough day or something, and that like something like that, or even like poverty. If someone does crime and they're coming from an impoverished community, technically, if they do crime, they're fitting the statistic around that. Like, technically, that's not free will, but I think the free will is choosing to. We're smart enough now, we have the information to look at all the choices. You're saying that,
That's
oh,
not
just
true.
because you have choices, you like it takes away the free will. But I don't think so. I think if you have the information in front of you and you still choose to
What's
do
up,
dumb
Kurt?
shit, that's free will.
No, it's
Or you
not.
choose to do smart shit,
No, it's not.
that's free will.
That's what I'm saying to you. It's not. It goes down to your genetics, right? Like again, there's the physical side of the world, right? And then there's more like the material or the mental side of the world, just
So
in
some
simple
people
terms,
have
right?
have addictive personalities, and if you know that's in your family, you can choose to surround yourself around addictive things
But
or
guess what?
not. That's
But
the
guess
free
what?
will.
But guess what?
Like, that's free will.
You didn't choose your family. You didn't choose your biology.
Okay, but you are choosing your choices.
You didn't
That's
choose
the
your environment. You didn't choose your
okay. Yeah,
language. You didn't choose your
everyone
race. You didn't choose your
is
sex.
born with a fucking flaw. Like, some people are born fat, some people are born skinny, some people
No,
are born like
even the
you.
good things about you, you didn't choose. That's what I'm trying to say. If you can understand
That's
what
what I'm
I'm
saying.
saying,
Some people are born with different hands. Just because you born with some, you have to play with the cards you're dealt, bro.
yes, but that's what I'm saying. If you can understand it from my point of view, that these aren't choices that people actively made, then you're better off for it. Because you know, like Jeff didn't choose to be 6 foot 10 or whatever, right? Jeff is just Jeff because his mom and his dad and the ancestry and his environment. So the good things about Jeff aren't Jeff's fault. The bad things about Jeff aren't Jeff's fault either, right? He's just a product, like everything else on this planet. Okay? That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. It makes it's better to look at things like that way than actually, trying to, like, for instance,
I don't agree.
societally, we need to be able to hold people accountable and blame people for things because of the way our systems work and the way our language works, right? Again, the epistemic foundations of what we're dealing with here, okay?
You're saying is basically
We
like
need
the
these
world won't
things.
change ever. Like,
No, no one's saying that. That's that. Do you know what that is, right? That's like when you're a kid and you're looking at a math equation and it's difficult, so you're like, nah, fuck this whole thing, right? That's what that is, right? That's just give it up before you get the picture, okay? But you can get past that bit and be like, actually, this equation is not that difficult, you know. Like
that's the
now
free
that I know
will.
what the numbers do, it's not that bad, okay?
That's free will, bro.
It's not, right? This is what I was saying. It's not, right? Right. So what I'm saying about the physical side of the world and the mental side of the world. The physical side is like your biology, who you're born to, what you're born as, right? But that physical side of the world determines what the mental side of the world can be, the potential for it, okay? So I say this with all due respect. People who are born with disabilities, maybe physical disabilities or mental disabilities, they don't control those. because of those things,
Yeah.
they control what can be thought, what can't be thought, what can be chosen, what cannot be chosen. Okay, so the mental world that we build, like this whole societal construct, our language and everything, entirely depends on the physical world. Unless philosophically you're an idealist, but that's for people who are more adept. Okay, but in a simple terms, right? Everything that you look around, you see around you, or you interact with, is depending on something else. Therefore, nothing is atomized on its own, right? Nothing exists isolated. So nothing is making a free choice. It's been informed by everything before it, and it will inform everything that precedes it. Okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. No, I follow you. I follow you, bro. Like, I follow what you're saying. Yeah, I just disagree with that thought process.
Huh,
Yeah.
that's totally fine, right? So what I actually have to do is restart the stream because they said I was bullying, right? Which I don't think I was bullying, but
Yeah, that's
but
all
hey,
good, bro.
but hey, right? Maybe we can pick this up in a bit.
All right, bro.
All right, good chat.
Good
Chill
chat.
vibes. You can come up in a minute, bro. I'm gonna restart the stream. It's probably because of my choice of language. There you go. Like who sets the standards? All right, who tells the lies? Who sets the standard? Right. Anyways, I'm gonna restart it. What's up, Dame? What's up, Neymar? What's up, powerful villain? Powerful villain. Alright, I'm sure I put a timer on. How are we doing? We didn't get to go back to that visual place where I was trying to explain to him about the two different Chester drawers, right? How they interact. Okay? But anyways, can't beat the system, but I don't suggest you join it either. But it is what it is. My problem is there's so much information I want to share, but I don't know it well enough to articulate it in a very simple way and at a high level. So the truth is I don't really know it enough, or I don't know it at all, put it that way. But there is very important things I want to be able to say when I'm explaining these concepts like free will, how this intersects with things like smoking and gods and society. All these important things, they intersect. Okay, it's deep, bro. Not joking. What's up, chilled?
Hey, how
Hello.
you doing, brother?
Good man. You?
We already had a conversation about the prompts, and I already agree with you 100% completely, but I just had a controversial topic, if you don't mind if I steal a couple minutes of your time.
When did we talk about this?
It was a while back, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Do you want like a refresher
Oh, you remember? Yeah, sure. Why not? Bring me up
or
to speed, and we'll go on to the next.
we were talking about pretty much how a lot of people that are influenced to marijuana or nicotine or these substances at a young age to where they develop like a dependency on it to where they feel like they don't feel that it is an obsession, but they more or less feel like they can't do without it, but they don't want to take that title because it feels demoralizing to them, so they act like it's just a hobby, or they say that they can, I'm not doing this, so they sugarcoat it and they refer to other things to try and give them this false hope that they're not doing that, so they're doing better than most people.
I get you. Yeah, I got the lines that we were talking about.
And then we talked a lot about the education system and all that, but I heard you talking in your last live, brother, and I had a quick question, if you don't mind answering.
Yeah, go.
Are you atheist, brother? Or
Yeah, I would say so. I think humans invented all the gods we know about. So yeah, I
so
think
do
that
you
would
think
count.
through like the whole evolution stand of life where like we came from like Neanderthals and all that?
I think there's quite a lot of evidence for that. Although I don't waste. Let me not say waste. I don't spend my time studying evolutionary biology, but I think there's a lot of evidence to support that stuff. Last time I went to a natural history museum, there was a good stuff there. You know.
I gotcha. I hear what you're saying. Have you ever really looked into religions like that or not really?
Um, I could say yeah, but I don't want to claim to know more than I do. But yes,
Yeah,
I have
I, I,
spent
I like to humble myself
significant
every
time.
day, brother. I hate acting arrogant just because I want to sound smart.
But I mean, like, that'd be out of your control, man. But shit.
I don't know. I think we have a different definition of what we think free will is, but
So
what gives you the idea of what is good or evil, or let's just say what's the best way to put this? Well, let's just go with that for now. What makes you know something is good or evil when you do it?
so what you're discussing is morals and ethics, yeah?
Yeah, like what? Where do you get your morality? Out of curiosity.
Well, in a very simple way, right? I get it from nature and nurture, meaning I have certain things instilled in me biologically, like we were just talking about free will, what I can think, what I can't think, and I get the rest of it from my society at large, my upbringing, etc. So
But let's sorry to cut you off, brother. Let's say I think morally it's okay to murder someone. What invalidates my opinion?
so there's a few approaches for it, right? Me personally, I would take right. So I wouldn't let me explain this, right? I wouldn't go around my day-to-day life judging every individual action and assigning it a moral property. Like this is moral, this is immoral, this is amoral, right? I wouldn't do that. But for the purpose of the conversation, I'd say, all right, what is the context of the murder, right? If we're just using murder as a definition, the unlawful,
Yeah,
unaliving.
yeah, I'm tracking, brother.
Yeah, we're just using murder as a general definition, an unlawful killing. Then what makes it wrong by the definition is that it's unlawful. Right? But
Hmm.
if you go a bit deeper than that and you say, all right, what does it mean to take a life or something? Then you have to start comparing it from systems, and this is what I mean by you get your understanding from different places. So in moral philosophy, you got something called deontological moral or ethics, right? It comes from a guy called Kant. It's basically just says you should strive to do what is in your duty to do, basically what was your duty to do. So that's one type of framework you can measure taking a life from. Then there's utilitarian ethics, which says do the cause as little harm as possible for the most people, or balance the harm. I'm not explaining this properly. So
You're good, brother. I'm tracking.
utilitarianism is the greatest good for the greatest amount of people, right? So you'd measure the act of killing somebody by utilitarianism, or you would look at something a bit more darker, right? Egoism, right? Doing what is good for you, right? Then you'd measure the act of killing against that, right? Or you'd say divine command theory, what God says is right, or what the Bible says is right. Then you'd measure the act of killing against that. What all that is to say, or cultural relativism, which is basically depending on where you grew up, what your laws are, and stuff like that, you measure against that. All that is to say, right, there are various different moral codes and ethical frameworks that you can measure acts against.
But wouldn't you think that would make morality a social construct at that point? When
It
you're
is. There's no two ways about it. Right, let me put it like this. I can't
so
say
do
that it
you
is, but there is an evidence that morals or the idea of morality can exist independently of humans. There's no evidence for that.
interesting. So do you think morality is subjective or objective?
That's like a bit like, not
Like,
redundant,
if you
but
don't want to get
it's
into this, brother,
reduced.
I hear you.
No, no,
I'm just
I'm very willing to get into this, but why I'm trying to say that is by looking at it as objective and subjective, you're not understanding what morality itself is, right? So if morality is a social construct that depends on humans and our understanding of words and times, and what's permissible now and in the future and in the past, you move beyond objective in a scientific sense, right?
but
You you can
it
create
kind of
arguments for objective morality, but you can't demonstrate morality to be objective, because all takes on what morality is stance dependent, meaning there is a subject involved.
all right. I just I'm a very religious dude, brother, and I just have this mindset, and I don't think we're gonna get to where we want to get to.
Ah,
But
we can.
I love
No,
what you're
no,
doing,
no, no. We
brother. I
should we
love.
should go. We should talk more. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, my sweet. All right, let's talk a
I'm
bit
not
like
afraid, brother. I'm just.
you're
I think
asking me
you're a
where
really
I
cool
get my
dude, and I love
morals
what you're
from.
doing.
All right, is essentially what you're asking me, right? Me as an individual, right, I've learned about I've evolved as a human, and I'm going to continue to, right? And I pull my moral codes, my frameworks from all different places: deontologicals, utilitarian, egoism, sometimes divine command theory at other times, ethics of care at other times, right? I'm closer to what you would call a relativist.
I hear that. I just don't think it's necessarily a great idea to be building your morality off of I know you already kind of invalidated the opinion-based morality, but you're saying off the government and growing up and
That's
all
not
these
just that's
other
not the government. It's
it
not an
kind of me just
authority
like
like that.
generalizing what we were saying about how like the laws of wherever you live and all that. I just
Mm.
think that's a very not necessarily smart way to
I would
develop this
I
morality.
would disagree. I would like you have to, all right. So for instance, right, the less you know about something, the more sure you can be. The more you start to know about it, is the more it starts to become like, oh, what's the context, right? What is the next step, right? You can think about step one, right? Things seem black and white. Kill someone, bad. Charity, good, right? You on the surface, these seem like very easy, kind of like a
But
binary
like, what if
choices. But when you take the next step and you're like, all right, what does killing entail? What does charity entail? How does that affect me? How does that affect the world at large? Where did I get the idea from? Now it opens you up to knowing a lot more about all of these views. So for you, you would say killing is bad because God says so, or the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not unalive, or whatever. On the surface, that to you that seems right, but then you look at it a bit closer. You say, all right, unaliving somebody. Is there examples in the Bible where people have been unalived and God has okayed it? Yes. So then, how does this put your objectivity? Like, where does this put your objectivity? Put it that way.
you're talking about probably like the flood or like a couple other scenarios where they sent
There's
like
more than
these
one. Yeah, like there's a couple. There's a couple unalive. Like,
it comes down to how would I put this? It's definitely a touchy topic. I'm not a bookworm as I should be with the scriptures, but I don't want to answer you and give you a foul taste of what it really means, to
brother,
be
like
honest with you.
you seem like a decent guy, and I doubt you're gonna say as bad of things that people have said to me in this subject. So you're good, right?
From what I know, reading Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and I'm still reading the Old Testament. I'm trying to figure out it to a T because I'm a very religious dude. I've read all of the New Testament, but from what I know is it was such we live in a cursed world, brother, where it's just full of sin and full of these nasty things. And if God had to make the it's hypothetically through my paradigm, if God had to make the decision to unalive a lot of the old world, it just makes you think whenever you're reading it in context and not just cherry picking it for what it is. It must have been a very nasty, simple world where these people were doing these crucial things. Like if we have abortion or like kind of controversial topics these days, it just makes us think, what was our world like way before God made that decision to do the flood and all that, brother? It must have been a very sinful world. He talks about sin as like
Nah,
a
bro.
nasty smell.
I mean, look, you're entitled to your beliefs, right? But what
Yeah,
you're really trying to do is justify things you already think without looking at it any closer.
but I'm not justifying it because I don't know what was it like. I don't know what it was like back then. I don't know
But
if it
you
was
know what it's like
justified or
now.
not, to be honest with you. But
You
I
know what it's
just
like to be a human now. Okay,
yeah,
you know what humans are
definitely.
like now, right? And you also still think God exists now. So
I mean, it's not a think, brother. I
you
just
kind of
have
have
like
all the context
anecdotal
you need.
answers that give me. To me, brother, it's not a think. I have anecdotal like circumstances in my life that kind of prove to me through my mindset that he's real. But
You
that's
believe,
just
right? And
yeah.
as two individuals on the internet will settle to say that you believe God is real right now. Okay. But that being said, all right, in terms of you trying to figure out what is objectively right, what is objectively wrong, you're worse off by leaning on something like divine command theory. That would be, I'm not saying, all right, so
I disagree.
as an individual, right, you like chilled as an individual, you're probably pulling your moral codes and ethics from all kinds of different places, right? As an individual, right? But if we're talking about religions as constructs or like institutions, the branding of Christianity or Judaism or Islam is the moral code of divine command theory. What the God says is right or wrong, or what the book says is right or wrong. Okay, so
Well, if you want to
as
bring
a
up like
whole,
other
yeah,
religions, I have a different mindset about
no,
that.
no,
But
no, no.
because
Just
like
for the point, I'm trying to explain. You as an individual, chilled vibes, right? You may walk down the street and say, in every circumstance, and every time, unaliving somebody is wrong. Better yet, in every
yeah,
circumstance and every time, unaliving a baby is wrong. You chilled as an individual, but then you zoom out and you say, all right. What does my wider society say? What does my religion say? What do the various different
But like, I wouldn't
interpretations
100%
say?
agree with
Right?
what you're saying because you say the unaliving of someone is wrong. I believe people can make mistakes and you can accidentally, not even accidentally because you know what you're doing majority of the time, you can unalive
Maybe.
someone. But I believe a murderer is a difference between someone that has unalived an individual. Like, say like this is gonna be a hypothetical, I know it's not really a good source, but say a child like 15 grew up watching like murder movies and they unalive someone that is close to them.
Mhm.
Do you think that they're a murderer, someone that does it for the sport and the fun?
Well, look, I think it's nuance and context, right? Because the fact that you're talking about a 15-year-old and their prior influence, I think there's a lot of mitigating things there to say that they're not necessarily a murderer in that kind of cold-blooded sense, right? If you was
Yeah.
to compare them to a serial killer or someone who's a veteran in the military, or just like a president that just presses the button and you disappear kind of thing.
So
They're
I was
not,
just trying to
there's levels
get
to
to
it,
that.
you
I don't
know?
believe that someone that murders someone is always a murderer. Someone that has that feeling of they did it because
Mhm.
they enjoy it. I think that there's some rare scenarios where people deserve that chance of.
I'm in agreement. Don't get me wrong, but again, this isn't like I said earlier on. I wouldn't waste my time judging every individual act, saying this is moral, this is immoral, this is amoral. I'd look at the situation and look at the context of that situation. So, like I said, right, you chilled as a person, you do the same thing. So you're not seeing black and white Christian morality because you're seeing context.
What do you mean by that? You
So
say I do the same thing? Can you elaborate?
right, so for example, right, chilled. Can we agree? Maybe I'm wrong. That you think in every circumstance it would be wrong to unalive a baby.
Definitely, yeah. I
Right.
can agree with that.
So chilled doesn't see things in a black and white, divine command theory way. Right. Chilled is able to engage with nuance. Right. But let's say Chilled wasn't able to engage with nuance, and Chilled just opened up a book one day, right? And he saw a bunch of rules that apparently a superpower gave, right? And it said, "Thou shalt not kill," right? Then Chilled's like, "Right, thou shalt not kill," and that's what it is, right? But then someone says, "Hey, Chilled, open up this part of that same book," right? And then he opens it up and he says, "Oh, God just unalived like 400 like babies for no reason." Now Chilled is conflicted because objectively he thought thou shalt not kill, but now he has to justify people in the book killing and even the God himself killing.
But this is gonna sound like a cop out, brother. But we don't know what the world was like back then. Like
That
you
doesn't
can
matter.
say it for what it is, yeah, of course. But I don't think that my judgment or my morality surpasses God. If that makes sense.
And that's totally fine from your paradigm. And again, that's the same kind of issue you have with free will as well, right? Because I would argue, in your worldview, you can't have free will because your
Because he's
will.
all knowing and all that. I
No,
heard
no,
you
no,
having a little
not
bit.
even just not even about the knowing. I like to leave the knowing bit. Like that argument's a great nugget for like proper hardcore atheists. But me, I keep it very simple, right? A Christian couldn't have free will because their will can't overpower God's will.
Christian can't have free will because their will overpowers
Cannot
God's
it
will.
cannot overpower God's will.
No, I don't see how that is. I don't see how that correlates. But can you elaborate a little more?
Sure, I will, right? So, for example, right, if you were to accept that there's a God and God set this whole thing off in motion, right? He set up the Garden of Eden, he set up the devil existing, Adam existing, Eve existing, later on Noah and all those people. He is like the prime art, like he's Optimus Prime of the universe, if that's even a good reference, right? He's the top dog, right? So, all that could occur within his universe, which he has all the power in, is because he wills it to be or wills it not to be. So from that
All
point,
right.
right, and you compare yourself as like a descendant of Adam, you're way down the food chain. They're like Shark Tales, where there's like there's whales, there's whale pooped, there's a rock, then there's you, right?
I hear
You're
what you're
like that
saying,
in
but I
terms of
don't
the
agree
scheme of
with
the
that.
universe. No, but I'm trying to
You're
say
acting like it's a pyramid of
hierarchically,
some sort,
it
a
would be,
hierarchy.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
It
But
would
like,
be. It would be because God would be the creator of the universe and everything in it. And anything that does happen would be because he willed it to be or willed it not to be. So therefore, if you're subject to his universe as his creation, your will cannot overpower his will.
say that one more time. Sorry, that last sentence.
If you are a subject of God's creation, right, in his universe, your will can't overpower his will or its will.
I mean, I can agree that we can't overpower God, but I don't like your example of what it is, like a hierarchy, like a pyramid. Like I would more or
It's
less think
a
of it
family
as
tree.
a yeah. Essentially like a tree that has all these stems that break off into different pieces and all that. But
But it still starts
more or
somewhere
less,
in the Christian world. It starts somewhere. This is like the God of Abraham. It has a clear family lineage, so it starts somewhere.
talking about Cain, Abel, yeah, that whole lineage. I hear what you're saying,
Right.
but just because there's a start, like if you use the example of a tree, brother, the stump is God, man, and when it goes higher and higher, it breaks off. Just because
Mhm.
you want to think that it's a hierarchy because that the people on top are on top and the people on the bottom are on the bottom, I would go ahead and just argue with scripture saying John 3:16,
Mhm.
which I don't know if you know that one, but like I have reasoning through my scripture, which a lot of people won't take it as historical evidence, even though I don't want to get too much into that, but I just believe that it's true, brother.
But you didn't make a coherent point, right? So
Uh, Elaborate. Sorry.
yeah, you didn't finish that thought, right? So you was critiquing me thinking of the Christian canon as a hierarchy, but you didn't finish that thought.
I don't think it's a hierarchy. I just go with the whole tree example. Just because God is the start of it does not mean that he thinks of himself as better than all of us. Like if he had that mindset, he would never have given us the choice to be with him or do all this, brother.
Ah, but see, this is where it starts to trip you up, right? The first point is right. If let's grant a God exists, right, and he's all powerful and controls the universe. Us as mortals, we don't have access to the mind of said God, right? We can assume God thinks in a way that we think, but we'd be silly because like he's an all powerful creature, right? So
Yeah.
we don't know what God thinks. We don't know why God thinks the way he thinks, right? The best that we could do as mortals is just look at what is done and what is there for us to see. Agreed?
Or righteous judgment, yeah.
Yeah, like
Same thing,
we
man.
can only look at the world as we perceive it as mortals, being that we're not gods, okay? So to that end, like we don't know what God thinks. We don't know why God does what he does, all right? But the other part of it is you said that God gives you choice, okay?
Yeah.
Remember if you listen back to the earlier conversation and I was explaining to the guy that like a standard definition of free will is the ability to act unconstrained by necessity or fate or at one's own
I
discretion.
would just probably argue with that definition.
But
I
no,
don't
no,
think
that's
that's
fine. That's fine, right? But you also have to acknowledge in a Christian paradigm, right? That is not the same thing that God is bestowing on Adam and Eve with the garden, or even the serpent and then the angels. Right? It's not the same thing, right? He's still the top dog. He's still controlling the scheme. The garden is his. The apple is his. Adam and Eve are his.
I have a
Satan is
question for
his.
you,
Right?
brother. Sorry to
So
cut you
they're
off.
not parallel to him. They're not equal in power. So their
Do
wills are
you
not
think
equal to
that
his. Yeah.
in the Old Testament, do you think that God is the one who created the earth is Jesus, or do you think it's the Father?
Well, obviously, I don't believe in any of that, right? But as I understand it, that the myth of Genesis is passed down by ancient Sumerians. Okay, so it's like Inanna, Ishtar, Anu, and all those people, and they remixed
But
it.
like, if you were to join my paradigm for a second, who do you think created the world?
It
Was
would
it
be
the
God.
Father or
It'd be God. It
Jesus?
would be God the Father. Jesus is just an extension of God the Father, just as the
That's
Spirit.
where I
The Spirit
definitely
is an
disagree.
extension of God
It's
the Father.
do you know what the Trinity is, brother?
Yeah, of course.
The God, the Father, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
They're
I
three
just
beings, but one essence.
well, that's an interpretation, but sure.
I gotcha.
That's yeah.
I just disagree
It's
with
not
you
matter of
then,
fact
brother.
to say the least. Right? It's an
To me, it is.
interpretation.
I don't. I'm not. I forget the definition of a
It's
Christian that
a
believes that the Father
Trinitarian.
is the only. No,
Oh,
no, I know what
you're a
Trinitarian, where
Unitarian.
they. That's what Unitarian means. Yeah, I heard you bring that up a couple times, where you only believe in the Father, but I completely rebuke that. I know that.
I mean, that's rough. That's kind of rough, man. Like,
Yeah, it's rough, but That's just what I think, man. At the end of the day, I'm gonna think the way I think.
hey, but again, right? This goes back to that same initial conversation, right? You saying what is right and what is wrong is still boiling down to your subjectivity, because there's this Christian sect over here that says God the Father is ultimate. There's this Christian sect over here that says Trinitarians is ultimate. There's this Christian sect over here that says saints have a say, like etc. Right?
Well, I
So
just think
although you've got the
Unitarians are
same
quite.
source material, you're putting out your own interpretations on what that means. Okay.
But when you misquote something, you take it out of context. Of course, you can make it think that's what it's saying, but there's nowhere really in Scripture that says that there's only God the Father. It actually quotes the
Well, yeah.
Trinitarian ideology throughout the entire scripture in the Old and New Testament.
No, that's
And
not
I don't
true.
get where you
That's
get
not true, right? So, like,
how so?
so the foundation of what becomes the Bible, right, the Old Testament, is pulled from a group of texts that the Torah comes out of, and I forget the name of
The
it.
Sea Scrolls and all that. I
No,
get what you're saying.
Dead Sea Scrolls come later. People discover that a lot later, right? The Tanakh, okay? So Tanakh, Torah, right? The living scripture, or whatever, right? That's the foundation for what becomes the New Testament, right? After, like, Jesus allegedly dies and the Romans pull together Council of Nicaea, all that history, okay? But the original Jews, right? Not let's not even say the original Jews, but the most recent iteration of Judaism, they are strict monotheism. So within their text and within their interpretation of text, there's only ever been God the Father. Now there were other gods, right? Because Jews got their idea, let's say Hebrews for the TikTok purposes, Hebrews got their ideas of various different gods from the Canaanites, the not the Amalekites. I forget their names, right? But there's various other tribes that existed in that time, and they are all the ancestors, or the kids of the ancient Sumerians, right? So the original Hebrews come from a henotheistic system. So they believe that they have a god, and then there's a god over there that's the god of Canaanite, and etc. Right? So when you get to Judaism, the Old Testament or the Tanakh or the Torah, they are strictly monotheistic because they've gone through the evolution of polytheism to henotheism to monotheism via Zoroastrianism. Okay, so at the point where the Old Testament comes in, and the New Testament gets written, they are strictly monotheistic. So they don't believe that there's a Holy Spirit. They don't believe that there's a type of Jesus. It's just God the Father. Okay. So what
I
you're
would just
saying
disagree
isn't
with that.
correct.
What you're saying is incorrect, brother. I don't see how
Hey,
that.
demonstrate otherwise, right? The Torah doesn't have a Holy Spirit and it doesn't have a Jesus.
Yeah, it does. I can pull up scripture that says it does.
Please do.
Just
Right?
because it doesn't word it in the way you're saying it right now, it
if-
doesn't say you
look.
can't eat a pizza roll at 3 p.m. But there's people
Yes,
that
but if put it this way, right? Not to pull like the fallacy cards and all that, right? But if it doesn't explicitly say what you're claiming it says, right, it's likely just an interpretation, right, of what you're reading, and that has nothing to do with what it actually says.
I think we're just gonna agree to disagree on this, brother. But I love talking with you. I love your movement. It's very
I
there's
haven't
not
got
a
any
lot of people
movement,
that
bro.
feel about like smoking and all that. It's
Oh yeah,
it's a
okay.
very harsh topic that people don't like to hear about, and I've known people that have unalived because of these things. I used to be addicted to these things, and it means a lot, brother, that you're actually trying to do something about it when most people will just turn the other eye and not care.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like shit.
Thank you for your conversation, man. I shot you a follow. Like, I love
To
talking with
borrow
you. You're
to borrow
very
from Christian ethics, none of us are perfect, right? So
amen. Yeah.
at least we agree on some things.
We're all sinful in some way.
I disagree
We're
with
all
that.
slaves to something, man.
I disagree with that too, right?
So but you don't agree with we're all a slave to something in this world?
Not necessarily, right? But in terms of the sin part, I wholeheartedly disagree with that, because a sin is a transgression against a God's moral law, and if you can't prove a God ever said anything, then you can't have a sin by any biblical standards. So I wholeheartedly disagree with that. But cultural sins, yeah, we make cultural sins, man. We wear Adidas and Nike together all the time. You know, it's like we mix drinks that we should mix, like all kinds of dumb shit we do. That would be cultural sins. But biblical sins, no, right? We're not all sinners, right? That's
Yeah.
in fact, that was
We'll just say it through my paradigm just to,
no,
to end it
but
off there.
that's
'cause
not
I got
that's
stuff
not
I gotta
even
do.
it's not even an original Christian paradigm, right? That was added by Saint Augustine, right? Well after the fact. Original sin didn't exist originally in Genesis. Go and talk to some Jewish people, okay? But
I mean,
anyways,
you could say a different definition for sin, but like we could say when the first sin was created would be also in heaven, but we could say when Cain killed his brother Abel, but that's just going off my paradigm that thinking the word of God is the Bible.
well, look, man. What we're discussing really is your beliefs and a little bit of scripture, all right? I don't take any of those things to be truth. I take them to be metaphor.
Yeah.
Until proven otherwise, they're just that. So no, to me, from my point of view, no man could ever tell me that they know the word of
So
God.
you're an agnostic
They're just
atheist,
simply
right?
telling me what a book says that another guy wrote. You know, it's really simple as that.
Because you could bring up Harry Potter's a book and there's a lot on it, but I get where you're
No,
going at with
that's
that.
not to
But
dismiss the value of the Bible, or I'm not dismissing the value of the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or whatever. I'm not dismissing the value of it. I'm just simply saying the claim that it's the word of God has nothing to do with what the words on that page actually say. That's just a belief that you hold. It's not something that's provable.
would you say you're an agnostic atheist, where you believe there
Yeah.
may be a God, but until you can find physical proof, you're not gonna
No, not all right. So
think.
more the opposite of that, right? I'm atheist in the fact that I know pretty certain that all the gods that we talk about day to day or historically are inventions of humans. I'm agnostic because I don't know what's actually out there in the universe. I don't know what's at the base of this thing that we call reality. So
I hear
that's
that.
my agnosticism.
I gotcha. Man, this was a great conversation. I love talking like this. I'm not the smartest. Like I can't pull up information like in a second, but ever since I quit smoking, like I have so much less brain fog, so I can actually have a sophisticated conversation and not just sound like an idiot.
That's good. That's
You have
good.
a good rest of your day, man. I'm
Hey, I
gonna go to the
appreciate
gym,
you.
but I got you a follow, man. I'll be coming up every once in a while. You're a very cool fellow.
So are you, man. You're a chilled guy, right? So
Hey,
I
that's my
appreciate you.
name.
I appreciate you for coming up, man. It was nice speaking to you. All right, so like while I was speaking to him, I wanted to pull up the actual because we started out for people who just dropped in. The recap was like me and him both agree about the smoking thing. We spoke before, right? But he pivoted to a conversation about morality and where I get my morals from, right? So what I was trying to explain to him is that as an individual, I'm pulling moral ideas and frameworks from all different kinds of people, different reference points in history, even some religious people, some philosophers, some politicians, my mum, my dad, my friends, my family, or TV. Right? Culturally, that is where morals are produced from because they are produced by humans independent. They don't exist independently of us, right? Obviously, him being a Christian and devout religious, according to him, no disrespect to him, he is putting his framework from divine command theory, and I was trying to get round to the point of explaining to him the problem with divine command theory and how it doesn't arrive at any objectivity around morals at all. Okay, so it's been a very long time since I talked about these subjects or like pulled up pictures and like help and stuff like that. But yes, there was a thing I wanted to show him while he was here, but I can't actually remember what it was called. I think it's this verse, right? So maybe you guys can see it, right? So what I was trying to explain to him in terms of the issue with divine command theory. So as I described to him, right? Chilled as a person is a decent guy, right? Well, he would appear to be. I don't know him personally, obviously, not vouching for the guy, but he appears to be a decent guy, right? So him as an individual Christian, he's pulling his moral values from all different places as well, because he agreed that unaliving a baby at any time wouldn't be the right thing to do. But the problem with that is it contradicts divine command theory. Chilled can say unaliving a baby at any time is wrong. But if Chilled is to subscribe to the Bible, he cannot definitively say that because of this, right? I'll read the verse to you. I can't remember what number in the Bible it is. That the whole context of this verse is basically there's two groups of people, the Hebrews and the Canaanites, right? Hebrews and Canaanites have been at war for 400 years. Canaanites got them down one time. The Hebrews got them down one time, and now the Canaanites are one up, right? So it's 400 years later, and God's speaking to the Hebrews, and He's saying, "Go and get some get back, right? I've got your back. Go get the get back." This is the context, right, in modern times. So 400 years has passed, right? And now this is God speaking to the Hebrews. I can't remember if He's speaking to Moses or who exactly it is, right? But I need to. Oh, I can just read it from my phone, I think. But yeah, I wanted to bring this up to explain to him the problem with divine command theory. So, the context I just explained. It's 400 years after the war with the Canaanites, and the Hebrews are doing their thing. So this is the verse. Now go attack the Amalekites. Sorry, not the Canaanites. I've been saying the Canaanites all this time. The Amalekites, right? So the Amalekites are who God's telling the Hebrews to go get back on, right? So this is God speaking. Now go attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camel and donkey. Right? So what was the moral quandary in that? The problem is there's lots of problems in that, but one of the main through line for me and Chill's conversation was that in order to have objective morality, he would have to admit that killing a baby at any time is wrong. But if he follows divine command theory, he now has to justify God killing babies and God telling the Hebrews to kill babies. Okay, that's the problem. So Chilled as an individual Christian, he can totally reconcile that. But as a Christian under the umbrella of Christianity, it's very difficult to pass, which is what trips them up mostly on their views on what is objective morality and what is subjective morality. But the reality is, divine command theory is divine subjectivity. It's based on the whims of the God, what the God thinks, what the God wants you to do or not, or doesn't want you to do. It goes back to an ancient philosophical thing called Euthyphro's dilemma. Is it good because it's good, or is it good because the gods say it's good? Or do the gods say it's good because it's good by nature? Right? So it's a lot of weird jargon. Well, Artex, so I was getting to that. All right, anyways. So yeah, I like, yeah, anyways. Anyone wants to request up for the last like bit and we talk either banning smoking or something random. I would like to hear some hot takes, but yeah, stream's kind of dead now. But yeah, I get the notion that people think because I have this kind of you could argue maybe a more conservative take on drug use, that I'm coming from some religious place, and I'm not. You know. But I can see why you might think that. Problem is, a lot of religious people are on drugs. Which is that. What do you mean, Nub? Oh, absolutely, Artex. Look, biologically, like, you're not supposed to inhale a bushfire, you're not supposed to inhale a cigarette, you're not supposed to inhale a smokestack. Like, you know, our respiratory system isn't built for that right now. I think, are they called capillaries and that? It's been a while, like alveoli, all this kind of weird stuff. We have filters built into our blood and into our lungs, right? It's like, I'm just like thinking back to BTEC PE. Right, but anyways, right, we have, yeah, that's where I got my biology lessons from, PE, right? So that says a lot. I'm joking. But our school system was so shit, right? But yeah, we have these things that help us filter out these toxins in our body, but they're not like they don't make us immune to the carcinogens, the other things like COPD, the irritants like asthma and allergies and shit like that. We're not built for that. Now, if you want to like go practice some eugenics somewhere and create a species like a smoke to their lungs go black and back, right? You do that, but still underneath the ice with the rest of the weird shit that you're doing. Alright, so Adrian, come up. Give me the argument for alcohol being worse. Right? Although I'm inclined to agree with you, I don't, because currently I have more information about the damage that smoking does than I do have information about the damage that alcohol does. But yeah, I don't doubt that alcohol is definitely bad. Hey, Leaf got my back, right? That sounds close enough. Sounds like a flashback. It's close enough. Not joking. Yeah, like, so in England particularly, we have a massive problem with alcoholism. Historically, we have, and it seems to be getting worse. But the problem I have is, in the context of this conversation, it would be what's called a red herring to bring up the fact. What's up, Matthew? It'd be a red herring to bring up the fact that alcohol is bad and should be banned too. I'm in agreement with you, but when it's brought up in the context of banning smoking, it's brought up as a distraction from the argument on banning smoking. Right? So that's why it's like, it's basically, it's poor reasoning to measure yourself against something else like that. Saint, you really want to know? It's been a while since I thought about it, but it all goes back to a cognitive theory called hyperactive agency detection device, or hypersensitive agency detection device. It's coined by a guy called Justin Barrett, right? But initially, early humans, right? So this would, I think, right? I might be wrong in terms of my timeline, but this would have been after the development of the bicameral mind, if that's how you pronounce it. The bicameral mind is like when humans started to become aware of their thoughts, right? And they started associating that with gods and stuff. This could be before, it could be after. I'm not sure in terms of our timeline of development. That's why evolutionary biologists are important, and evolutionary psychologists are important as well, because they can tell you this stuff. Right, which me and Normie can't. But anyways, right, so initially, right, there's this thing called hyperactive agency detection device. I kind of want to get out of this map because it's really boring in this area. But what hyperactive agency detection device is responsible for is our survival primarily. Our ancestors had it and we have it today. But how our ancestors used it, it would be like this. There's a hypothetical John and a Jane in a jungle, right? John and Jane in a jungle. John and Jane are foraging or hunting or doing whatever they're doing, right? And one day they see a bush rustle, right? So the bush rustling is a sensory input, sensory stimulation. So it's auditory and visual, and maybe some kind of vibrations. So there's feels too. But basically what happens is subconsciously, this sensory input sends a message to their brain that that bush is either got something alive in it or the bush itself is alive, right? So it was a defense mechanism to protect us from predators. So what would have happened initially in the past is that whoever converted the signal into danger first, they would have took off running, right? This also speaks to what psychologists reference as fight, flight, or freeze. So basically humans have had this capability for a long time. It's how we survived, right? Specifically human beings as part of the Hominidae family. But anyways, jargon aside, okay, the hyperactive agency detection device basically says the person who identifies the sensory data as danger and assigns it agency, meaning it's acting on its own behalf. So a human is an agent, an animal is an agent. If gods exist, gods are agents, right? If ghosts exist, ghosts are agents. So just if you think of an agent, just think of something that is capable of acting knowingly, right? So if the sensory data of the bush rustling sends the signal of danger to the ancient human's mind, they were more likely to survive and pass on their genes by running away. The person who didn't and stayed had like maybe a 50-50 chance of there being something in that bush and them dying or not being something in that bush. But anyway, right? Today we still make use of that. An example is you're laying in bed, you hear something go bump in the night, and you immediately assign that sound, that sensory stimuli, agency. You say, that's the sound of the door, someone's breaking in. That might be the dog knocking over the pan. That might be a friend or a family member rummaging around, okay? So you've assigned agency to that sensory stimuli. That's how we use it today. Also part of survival, right? So how did they use it to invent God? So the first phase of God invention, right, was humans assigning agency to elemental, that's stuff like earth, wind, water, fire, hurricanes, rain, storms, volcanoes, earthquakes. That's elemental, right? And celestial speaks to things in the sky and the stars, right? So it's like the sun, the moon, eclipses, meteors, comets, okay? So they would use that power to assign danger and agency to the bush, to the sky, to the storm, to the fire, right? And they, over time, as language developed, they started to conceptualize this language and tell stories about the event. I'm oversimplifying this, of course, right? But they would tell stories about this event, and the first types of gods that would be produced would be these elemental and celestial gods. Hence why there's a correlation across the planet of elemental gods and celestial gods. Again, it's been such a long time since I've talked about this. I thought I could use a refresher. What am I even talking about, right? But I thought everyone understood this stuff, right? But I'm clearly the one that needs a refresher. So I'll try and pull up a table, right, that helps explain all of this neatly. Wow, it's been a long time. I've been so busy with like work and shit that I've just like completely abandoned all this like internet stuff. Let's see. So yeah, what was I explaining? The first layer of God creation is elemental and celestial, right? And there's correlations found across the planet in different is it this image? I guess it's not that image. What did I just do? I butchered my stream somehow. All right, so the stream shouldn't look like that. So I did something wrong. Yeah, we move anyway. So I'll see if I can get the list up somewhere else. Right. It's that one. All right, cool. So basically, the first phase of God creation is assigning agency to elemental. Oh yeah, I can see I get killed. Elemental and celestial things. Okay, and through archaeology and anthropology, we find evidence of these early gods across the world, in different regions and planets. On screen is not even close to an exhaustive list of different god configurations from different regions on the planet that demonstrate these various different phases. I'm going to quickly, briefly walk you through if I can. Right. So the first step of god invention historically was assigning agency to elemental and celestial things. Right? This produces gods of water, gods of fire, gods of earthquakes, thunder, etc. Now, the second phase of god creation was what's described as internal generation of abstract concepts. So if you think of phase one as looking at the outside world and calling things God, phase two is looking at the inside world and calling things God. So when we arrive at phase two, we're already capable of commanding language and conceptualizing. So we start to call abstract ideas like peace, war, creation, destruction. Those things also now become personified as gods. Then we move into phase three, is when we're moving past hunting and gathering into farming and civilizations, what we describe as polis or cities. Okay. And at this point, we have a variation or a combination of elemental gods, abstract gods, and now the anthropomorphic layer. All right, so the first layer of God creation was done for survival. The second layer of God creation was to provide reason, right, or to give meaning. Right? And the third layer was to organize society. And we still live in that layer, that third layer today. Okay. Why is the third layer about organizing society? Because it's anthropomorphic. Right? So it's us putting our essence into our creations now. Now they mirror our hierarchical structures. So an example of this is Zeus, for instance, an anthropomorphic deity with an elemental nature. So he controls sky and thunder. Right? He's a king, whereas a king found in hierarchical or social configurations. Right? And under him, there are various gods. But if you look at Greek mythology, like with the release of whatever that movie is, you'll see that there's gods that come before Zeus, right? So it would be Kronos, right, which is an abstract entity. Okay, there are other gods like that as well. So the primary, even in Greek canon, the initial inventions are elemental and celestial. Right. But anyways, all right. First layer of god invention, assigning agency to elemental celestial. Second, abstract, internal generation of abstract concepts to give meaning, right? Or meaning making, I forget the exact term of it, right? And the third is for societal cohesion, right? To organize people into groups, temples, cults, eventually religions, etc. Okay. But historically, we got so much evidence of us doing that versus the gods just existing on their own out there in the ether. So that's why I say that. But that took long because I haven't spoken about it in a long time or thought about it in a long time. But not only did we invent these various gods, right, we also invented the various categories of god configurations. Okay. That's exactly, Wave. That is a very good question, right? And that is what millions, I want to say millions to exaggerate, but that is what a lot of people have set out historically to try and figure out. What is the actual evidence of gods? So far, like all of our studies, all of our searches, the finger keeps pointing back to us. That, like, what you could argue is the furthest we've got is really, I say this with all due respect, is like post hoc rationalization from the lens of idealism. Right? So it's people who are building on the theological history of what we just discussed, elementals, abstracts, etc. And now they're using our modern understanding of mind and philosophy to try and justify the existence of gods. This is where you get your your ontological, cosmological, teleological arguments. But what those are fundamentally rationalist approaches. Right? They are not empiricist approaches. Empiricists go out and try to measure the reality, the world. Rationalists say, I can sit from here where I am and figure this out with my brain. The empiricists can't find evidence of gods. They find evidence of humans. A rationalist could say philosophically, this is possible, this is impossible, this is necessary, this is they have a contingent, right? And they can construct various models and arguments around those philosophical views. But yes, that's the point, Wave. We can't find evidence of gods outside of us, right? The best we can do is say, wow, like the reality is so layered and crazy, there must be something behind that, right? But what that becomes is God of the gaps, so far, anyways. But yeah, reality is, I don't know. Like, I'm just a guy on the internet at the end of the day. There are people who have dedicated their life to try to figure this out, and even their generations of life. But anyway, back to the point. Not only did we invent those various gods, right, we invented the configurations of those gods. And the configurations of those gods come about at different parts of history. So like one of the earliest type of categories or configurations for gods is animism. Okay. So not monotheism. Monotheism doesn't come around till I want to say 1600 BCE. I might be wrong. Again, not studied this in a while. I don't retain the facts very well, but it comes around late, right? Monotheism comes around from the combination of the ancient Sumerians, primarily in that region of the world, which is the Levant, then the Canaanites, the Amalekites, the Hebrews or the Jews, right? Then they meet with a group of people called the Zoroastrianists. And the Zoroastrianists help them boil down from polytheism, henotheism, which was with the early Jews, into monotheism. But they do it through a process of duality. Okay, a light and a dark, a good and a bad. Right? You have a bunch of spring-off religions from that point. But that's what helps focus what you call Christianity and Judaism today into monotheism. But the earliest configuration is animism. Right? So that's spirits that inhabit nature and whatever. Right, but hopefully you can see it on the screen. Take a screenshot if you need to. Like, this is very public available information. No secret garden shit. It's just, it is what it is. Wave, how could you know though? Right? How could you know? Right? You are bound to this material reality. Okay, you can again, philosophically speaking, you might think there's an outside and there's like an idealism or mind precedes matter, but can you prove it? Okay. But what you can know is you are bound to this material construct. You're using these various different explanations or descriptions of reality to describe reality. Like, I know it's a very Ouroboros, but whatever, I put it to you like this, right? Until we can operate outside of the framework of being human, we can only know what we can know as humans, right? So people used to hate that I say this all the time, but all of these views are anthropocentric, and they depend entirely on us existing and cannot exist independently of us. So to be able to describe or know if a God exists or what the true nature of God is still a completely human phenomenon. Like, we don't know if ants and aardvarks and lions and, you know, and butterflies, we don't know if they conceptualize and they think these things. Likely they don't because of their makeup, right? But we do. Apparently. Okay? And we don't seem to have a consensus on this, so like, I guess, like, you know, do with that what you will. But yeah, like what like, just speaking out loud here, obviously that's the whole point of the stream, right? But thinking out loud, Wave, right? It would be on us to figure out what that third possibility is. Okay, or is it some mixture of the two? Or are you gonna like engage in what's described as quantum mysticism? And you're like, oh, there is some dual state, there is some, you know, in between. What happened to my background though? But it doesn't though. That's the, like, so Wave, right? Actually, look, I'm wrong for saying it doesn't, right? So from my view, Wave, right, you would need to explain to me where that irreducibility can be found. Because, like, from a very simplistic materialist view or physicalist view, the phenomenon of neurons firing is what's giving you this whole software and framework to use vocabulary to conceptualize. So from my point of view, mind is reducible to matter. Matter is reducible to energy. But what next from that point of view? Right, again, a normal guy, not scientist, not philosopher, just a guy, okay? Someone probably knows, but I'm not that person. But from your point of view, you need to explain to me why you think it's irreducible in that way. We don't need to do anything, but it'd be fun to know. How do I fix my background now? Like, just went from talking about banning smoking to just like pseudo philosophy. It's like in a very short period of time. So it was just like, there it is. I think that's it. So there's like this black circle I used to use. Hey, there he is. That was focus all the noise of the stream. What are those complex systems at rest? You know, I got 21 minutes, man. I should have just played Death Stranding in all honesty, since we're talking so much, yapping so much nonsense. There was no point in playing a fighting game. In fact, I think some of the things, like some of the like symbology and metaphor that Jim was putting into the Death Stranding is very good for this type of stuff. Some of his ideas, well, to be fair, he's pulling from a lot of different places anyway. We're all out here just looking for the anti-life equation, like, what's his name again? Like Darkseid. How can you say it right? So help me understand, right? So that was to you, Wave. Help me understand what you mean. Neurons explain mechanisms, not experience. That's the PS5 version, Shadman. I don't know how many trophies I do have on the PS4, but I am on the 5th playthrough, so. We're not hunted or preoccupied with living, so consciousness emerges in my being. I'm not sure I get what you mean, Matthew. Sorry, powerful villain. I don't know if you're still over there on the Red app. I've not even looked at the chat. So look, I think if you want to make an argument for ethical veganism, as bad as it sounds, you need to appeal to human, like, selfishness. You need to be able to construct an argument that makes us see ourselves in it. If you approach the idea of ethical veganism from a view of harm reduction for animals, it's only some people will care, right? And in my opinion, right, I don't know if powerful villain's even still listening, right? Maybe you see it on a replay or whatever. But from my point of view, right, majority of people who lead from the harm on animals do it majority from a either ideological standpoint, which everything is ideology, but mostly from like I say this disrespectfully, a type of virtue signaling, right? So it's not that they actually care about the animals, it's that they would like to be seen to have that care, which may, like feed into other kind of wants in their life, right? Anyways, right. Or it's what they've been told they're supposed to think. Now, although, like, again, last time I went to a farm, all right, I saw the cows, like, very close. I didn't even want to get close to them, all right? It was very difficult to disassociate from them being there, looking at me with massive heads and massive eyes, and me, like, eating a burger or meatballs or whatever, right? All right, so it's like, it's new word alert. It's fetishistic disavow. I know very well, yet still, I know very well it's an animal. I know very well I harm the world by eating it. Yet still I do. Okay. So if you're right. You're right, powerful villain. I'm glad you're still here, right? You're right. It is cognitive dissonance to an extent, but it is centered around that human egoism, essentially. So my view is, like, I had a conversation with someone about this like a couple of weeks back. You have to construct the argument to not necessarily stroke the human ego, but you have to approach it from like a hardcore capitalist type of view or postmodern view. How does this affect my individualism, my identity, and what do I get from it? Not how do I help the planet, not how do I help the animals, not how do I help the next generation. What do I get from it? Right? Once someone figures out that bit, then they'll win every time. But the fact is, they're still fetishistic disavow. All right, I know very well, yet still. Okay, so I hope I'm using that in the right context, all right? But the argument has to be fair, it would probably need to be more than an argument. I do think the economic part of it is super important. It's making it accessible, making people also understand just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good for you, and how it should be prepared, how it should be cultivated, distributed. All those things need to be made abundantly clear, and not just like, oh yeah, I'm good because I eat green, but like look at the plastic you're eating, look at the process. Like, have you seen the logistics of on the other side of what it takes to produce the plants that you're eating that make you feel a little bit better? In the words of Slavoj Žižek, you're purchasing surplus enjoyment, right? So the price of being a good person is inside of the price of the Starbucks coffee, right? So I converge, or like it's inside of the fair trade chocolate. I'm purchasing surplus enjoyment. I'm purchasing extra goodness by purchasing this product, which signals that I'm a better person than you, right? But in terms of my actual actions, it's apathy, because the corporation is doing it for me. I'm just buying the product that I was gonna buy anyway. Do you get? So it needs some marketing. It needs some marketing. That Dylan, I don't drink. Sorry, Waver. I got distracted. But yeah, I know. Look. Cognitive dissonance included, I know it would be the right thing to do, but I don't do it, right? Now, like, in a pseudo-psychology type of way, right, being that I'm just a normal person, I also know from my own history, a big part of why I eat meat in the first place is about rebellion, because I was raised to not eat meat, okay? So like, a part of my own warped childhood informs why I choose to eat meat. Not just the fact that it tastes good. It's just my part of my trauma, right? So, although there's a lot of things that I'm not self-aware about, that's one of the things I do know, right? That comes from this because of that, okay? But that's just me. That doesn't speak to the world, right? Or why you should do it or not do it. That's a good point too, powerful, right? But again, the view on sentience, right? That again is speaking to the existence of the animal itself, right? Why should the human care, right? In a way, I explain. I know that sounds raw. It's not that I don't care, but an example is this: powerful villain. What is it like to have hooves? What is it like to have a nose that can smell things from a mile away? Powerful villain, what is it like to see in a different part of the color spectrum than you currently see? Powerful villain, what is it like to hear vibrations from something coming 10 miles away? Powerful villain, what is it like to be able to sense rain before it falls? Powerful villain, what is it like to be able to fly through the sky? Powerful villain, what is it like to spin a cocoon? Powerful villain, what is it like to hibernate, right? All of those things that speak to a reality, to an experience that humans don't have access to. So all of that information is in the background when you speak to me about the sentience of another animal, even though I'm looking at the cow dead in the eye, right? I don't know what it's like to be a cow. Like, if you said to me, hey, Seth, do you want to try this burger made of human bodies? And I'm like, oh, you know, like, I know what it's like to be human. You know, that to me seems a bit wrong. Okay, but when the shoe's on the other foot, you can look past all those things. You know, for various different reasons. Although you're right. No, but no villain, like exactly powerful villain, right? The mistake you're making is like the people who make the mistake and say, "Oh, like you were born in communist Russia, so you, like your childhood must have been perfect because your perceived identity aligns with my current ideology, right?" But my childhood, you wouldn't want to live my childhood. I didn't even want to live my childhood. So like you missed the point of what I'm saying to you, okay? So like no, like you wouldn't want that, right? And that's not. It's really as simple as that, right? Really and truly, right? It matches the idealized version of what you think it should be, but when it comes to reality, you probably wouldn't want it. Right? As with most things, right? The idea is better than the reality. And here's another point: powerful villain, right? There's a bunch of people, myself included, to some extent, that build their identity on the negation of other things, right? Now, there's obviously the racism view. I'm not saying I'm racist, but just as an example, right? One of the core principles of a racist is to build the identity on the negation of the other identity. So it's not that I'm me because I'm me, it's I'm me because I'm not them. It's like people on the right say I'm me because I'm not them on the left. People on the left say I'm me because I'm not them. Now, again, a conversation I had with Nihil, if he's milling about somewhere on the TikTok, right? He referenced it like this. It was the Overton window, because I asked him, right, so what happens? So the context was media is primarily focused on a right-wing view, right? So a left-wing ideology and view doesn't get shown as the standard, right? And the way he framed it was, yes, that's because of the Overton window. So as things move further to the right, the centralized position seems more, like, put it this way, as things move further to the far right, the conservative position seems more middle ground, right? Like, for instance, in modern politics, you get reform and it seems quite far right. Then like, we're going to splinter reform and make restore, and this is far right. Now it makes reform look like they're decent. Okay, so that's an example of what happens when veganism actually works and people who build their identity around the view of veganism can't associate with the extra social currency that's afforded to them while it's not cool to do, right? That's a part of the problem, the Overton window type of thing, right? So what happens when the people who espouse veganism and veganist ideals actually make it work, right? Then what becomes of their uniqueness? Then what becomes of their individuality? Then what becomes of their counterculture? Where do they go next? There's that too, right? So a lot of people that actually have an incentive from that point of view not to do anything. It's just to have the kudos or the extra mental brownie points to say, I'm not like them, I'm like this. You know? It's just something to think about. So Rylan, I think smokers should be banned because the cons outweigh the pro. Kills 8 million people a year. And another thing, yeah, the government does have a big part to play in the whole farming thing. But it's still majority privatized. Therefore, consciousness is not obviously reducible to those. I don't. Right. So wave. Right. I don't know if that's true. Right. I understand what you're trying to say. Like a collection of neurons firing doesn't explain what it's like to experience, but that's because you aren't those neurons, right? And it's not like it like for instance, how would you emulate those neurons firing into into something sensible, something that makes sense, right? It would only be code because you aren't the neurons. You're just observing the neurons. So what would that actually mean? Do you know? But one could say those neurons firing in you is what it is like to experience being you and the various sensory data that you're taking in. Why didn't he pick that up? Oh well. What's up, Sahil? I mean, Death Stranding isn't goated. It's a very struggle game. It's very hard to stick to. Now, Hideo Kojima is goated, for sure. And when he releases Signet, I'm sure that will be goated. But Death Stranding isn't. It like, although this one, raw, I don't know what I've done there, but that stream hasn't been seen by anybody but 3 people. I did something wrong. But anyways, although that's what you're getting at. What was I gonna say? Although like the production level is completely higher than the first one, the story is still heavily disjointed. So it's not even. There are scenes that just don't even make sense. Right? And I don't think that's just a matter of picking missions in the wrong order. It's just the way that they filmed it, or the way they put all the bits together. It just feels disjointed. Like there's a central through line that should be there that isn't there. Right? Kind of like how Metal Gear Solid 5 was. Hideo, like obviously I'm being nostalgic and just like, you know, like loving the past too much, but Metal Gear Solid as a series, as a franchise, is very linear, and because it's linear, they can like spring off on like retro, like not retrofit, but retroactively bridging other storylines because it's following this one narrative. Death Stranding, Metal Gear Solid 5, because they're open worlds, it doesn't have that cohesive kind of through line like the Metal Gear Solid games do. You know? So that could be the problem. So it's just like pouring a lot of money into game development to not be able to experience a game like and feel like I actually played something. Feels like someone once described Death Stranding like clocking in to play a 40-hour pizza delivery job. It's like, why do you want to do that? Yeah, it would. No, but that's such a contrarian, isn't it? That's the problem with what we were just arguing about earlier on about free will. It's there isn't even that much choice. It's like, for instance, people think Grand Theft Auto, when it first came out, obviously it seemed crazy, right? So compare like original GTA, platform GTA, like PS1, to the release of Grand Theft Auto 3. It felt like you jumped into a different universe. Oh my god, the car's 3D, I could pull out a bat, like people run down the street. It's amazing, right? There's a helicopter, there's a boat, right? I think you could go in a boat, not a helicopter in GTA 3, right? But the reality is, there were small improvements all the way up to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, right? But since San Andreas, it's been the same. But when you actually look a bit closer, every single Grand Theft Auto has been the same, right? There are car missions, there are fighting missions, there are shooting missions. That's it. You go there, you pick this up, and you come back. Like, that is it. Right? So when you actually boil it down to like what the game is, there isn't that much choice. But there's trinkets and distractions to make you think that it's a free choice, but there isn't. Just like this game, just go here, pick this up, come back here. Like every single mission is almost exactly the same. The terrain changes ever so slightly. They offer you like a little gadget that supposedly makes it easier, but it's the same. It's more of the same. So really, you're hanging on to see the storyline in between the missions. But the storyline isn't cohesive. Anyways, alright, I'm done yapping. The thoughts on smoking is it should be banned because it's going to kill you. And it kills 8 million people a year, so you should probably stop doing that. No, I'm joking, it's way more nuanced than that, but my time here is done. I've given. Nah, alright, so Wave, I understand that view, but I disagree with it, alright? I disagree with it. There's no evidence that is true. What do you mean everything can if we're being honest? What do you mean? So, yeah, it's kind of too much to get into for the last like 2 minutes. What's up, Lou? Long time. I'm literally about to end the stream. No, not everything can unalive you. That's not true, but look, it's too much to get into. Hey, I appreciate you, Lou. I'm about to end this stream. But right, put it like this, right? The choice to smoke, like we were just talking about the free will and the problem with free will and how it's not actually free, you just have choices. What would lead you to smoking ultimately is not your choice, and why you end up smoking is not your choice, right? So for instance, yes, like when and where you go in life, where you die, is also not your choice. But at the point in which someone makes you aware that this is killing you, right? You're killing people around you. Now you're somewhat responsible. Okay, so driving a car, the value is way higher than the risk. Getting on a plane, the value is way higher than the risk. That's something you can manage. What is the value of smoking, right, versus the risk? Okay. If we'd even get into the medical marijuana argument today around how about topicals, tinctures, vapes, and all the other alternatives to smoking, right? We didn't even get there. But if you know the risks on the respiratory system, the value doesn't even compare, right? Just a little rush, getting high, potentially getting psychosis, doesn't compare to the damage, does it? Yeah, I do, Jake. But it needs more nuance than tobacco, because like I was just saying, like even with the prohibition, the history of alcohol, and alcohol as it exists today as a chemical substance has way too many applications to just reduce to a bottle that you drink, whereas tobacco and cannabis, well, cannabis does have quite a lot of applications outside of consuming it to get high. That truth be told, but tobacco not so much. Once you get the nicotine, you can do what you want. Right? But yeah, anyways, I am ending the stream, right? I'll come back tomorrow, maybe. I can't guarantee, but yeah, we've talked so much. Go watch the replay, right? Anyways, I'll see you later. Thanks for coming. Bye.